Hello, and welcome to the podcasting getting started intro call. I'm so glad you guys are here. I think podcasting is just a really wonderful way to get your ideas and your wisdom out in the world. To me, there's such a lack of wisdom in the world. There's a lot of talking and there's a lot of voices, but it feels like there's not a lot of unique, authentic wisdom. And that's why I get excited about sharing what I know about podcasting with individuals that are thinking about it. I know I faced my own insecurities. I'm not a professional podcaster or a broadcaster. I don't have a background in that. So there was a lot of creepy crawly moments when I even thought about doing it. I totally understand those. And I have a lot of great strategies for helping you get out of your way while you share yourself more fully and your wisdom and your compassion and your love and your big ideas with this world. Okay. Okay. So podcasting, it has gotten easier. It is easier now than it has ever been. I proved that to myself by starting another podcast with a friend of mine. So we set up a whole new one from scratch. And the one that I did before it was probably 2010 when I did that. And it was on something called Blog Talk Radio. I don't even know if that's still there, but it was kind of like talk radio on the internet, is basically what it was. So you didn't need a local radio station to pay for advertising or studio time or any of that. It was just on the internet. And they had a link to put it on iTunes, now known as podcasts on Apple. So it was a great solution for me at the time. Anyway, I just learned a lot along the way and it's changed a lot, but it's a lot more simple to set up. I don't believe you need to pay someone else to do it for you. If you have that kind of money to throw around, I heard from one client, that's how this idea actually came about. I had a longtime client who was saying that she's thinking about podcasting, and she had, she was going to pay, I think it was like $2,500 to have someone else set up her podcast for her. And I said, but then do you operate it or do they operate it? She said, no, then they operate it for $100 a month. I was just like, wow. I'm in the wrong business. No, I don't. Yeah. So I never thought of doing something like this, but I love the idea of helping you feel more autonomous and more independent in your ventures related to business and sharing your ideas in the world. And I know you don't need to pay somebody else to do what I know. I know if I can do it, you could do it. And if you can't do it on your own, then I can help you do it. And it would be for a lot less. And I would teach you how to operate it yourself. Okay. So let's go through some of the questions that are important to answer when you're thinking about a podcast. Do you want to do a live podcast or a pre-recorded podcast? That changes the technology that you're going to use. It changes how you set it up. And it also changes some of the hardware that you need in terms of cameras and things like that. Are you going to do audio only or video? There are a lot of, I'm a podcast consumer. I've been listening to podcasts for years. It's my main way of receiving information is via podcasts. I don't watch YouTube videos as often as some people do, but some people call a YouTube video a podcast. And we put our podcast, my friend Jill Lankler and we put that on YouTube and it is our podcast. So there's kind of a blurring of the lines for a lot of people between podcasts and YouTube videos, and I accept that. But audio only, there's a lot of podcasts that I listen to that are only audio. They have no video component. And that adds a whole element of simplicity. If it's just you, a great microphone and recording or doing live for the audio only. So I always do video. I get a lot of positive feedback on the video. You don't have to watch the video, even if there's a lot of people that walk around with the YouTube on and they're not watching it, they're just listening to it. But it does give that added dimension of intimacy and getting to know you and personality. There's a lot of obviously verbal expression. The other advantage of video is that for individuals that are not, English is not their first language, I didn't appreciate this as much, but I had a client who lived in the Netherlands, and she said, when it's audio only, I missed about 20% of what you're saying, because when I can see you, there's something about me seeing you speak in English that I can actually get more out of it. And YouTube does have automatic closed captioning that's available. For my videos anyway, it's horrible. It's so inaccurate. It's not even, I mean, it's kind of comical. But anyway, so for some people, I think they really appreciate the effort to put a video part of it. For some people, if you're one of those people that you will obsess over, the background and the lighting and what you're wearing and all of those things, I would really, if that's going to be another reason your brain uses to talk you out of actually starting your podcast, I would say don't do video, just do audio, because my motivation as your support peer in the situation is to encourage you to get started on something, somewhere, anywhere, and not try to minimize those barriers to entry that you've created for yourself. So video is a whole level of intimidation and insecurity for a lot of people, but I hope I can talk you out of those. Okay. Are you going to do a podcast where it is just you sharing your wisdom, i.e. a monologue type of situation? That's what I did. I didn't have guests. And that's still, I think, pretty rare. A lot of the podcasts that I hear, it's multiple people talking. There's like a professional guest that's brought in, or somebody that has expertise or a unique experience. So you get to decide how you do that. You can, of course, switch it up too, where sometimes it's just you. You could do a monologue before a guest or before a kind of panel discussion. There's tech obviously involved. If you have guests, you can obviously use Zoom and something like that. Jill Lankler and I, for our podcast, we started using, I've been down so many rabbit holes, and I'm hoping to prevent you from those rabbit holes because they don't go anywhere good. But we invested in this tech that was in replace of Zoom, and it just wasn't worth it. We tried it for a couple of months, and it was just like, let's just scrap this and just go back to Zoom. So that was called Riverside.fm. It's cool, but it's just glitchy, and it wasn't worth it. It was not worth the extra effort. Camera choices, microphone choices. You can see I just have AirPods in. I literally have a drawer full of expensive microphones. I have a Yeti that's really fancy and expensive, and I have tons of cameras I bought, and today I'm just using the built-in HD camera on my my MacBook Pro, my laptop, and it's just as good as the fancy HD cameras I have, because Zoom does not record in HD, and you may not know that, so FYI. The size of the files that you're going to be creating, especially if you do a video podcast, that adds up. You're going to want a system for how you handle those large files. Yeah, so that's a big one. Recording programs, if you are doing a pre-record, what you are using to record it on. Obviously, Zoom has a recording option, but there's setting choices to make there. And I'm not trying to intimidate you further by this list, but these things are going to need to be answered by you in terms of how you say yes or no, or what you say yes to as you go forward. The other part of this is the level of editing and polish that you're going to expect of yourself. Again, I'm not a professional broadcaster, and I had to stop myself at the beginning from pretending that I was. I do say okay, I do say yeah. And if I were going to, not do this work, not do all of the work that I do via my podcast and online courses and private sessions until I got those fixed, I would still not be sharing. I would have not have helped all the people I've helped since 2009, 2010, when I got started. And that, I mean, I can feel my community going, oh, like, if you weren't there, we've been so helpful, all that kind of stuff. So the level of editing and polished, I hate editing. It's such a time suck, and it's never perfect. So your level of idealism and perfection will probably want to be managed based on how much time you have. You can pay someone to edit. Again, that's just another expense. It slows down the process. So I have had people that I paid to do fancy intros and outros and all that stuff, but they took like 5 days with the file, and the files are big. So transferring the file to them and then getting the file sent back to me so that I could upload it onto, YouTube and the other podcasting streaming services. It was just so slow. And I thought, well, crap, I can do this myself and have it up in an hour. So I don't want to wait 5 days for something that, I mean, yes, it's a little bit more slick and stuff, but who cares? I don't care. I'm not impressed. When I'm listening to a podcast or watching one, I don't care about the intro and the outro and then it has a fancy, you know, uh, tune, kind of musical tune at the beginning and the end. I'm not impressed by that. So I'm more bare bones in terms of like what are you actually saying that's helpful or useful or just entertaining for me? And that matters so much more to me. So you get to make those choices for yourself. What is important to you? And what will you dedicate yourself to in terms of quality and editing and polish and slickness for your audience that you'll be creating? Okay, I need a sip of water here. Where to publish? There are so many choices now. There are a lot of different podcast services from SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube is one, Apple Podcasts. There's a lot. And I saw a study, it was in December, I believe, of 2022, that the top three ways that individuals are receiving podcast content is YouTube, Apple Podcast, and Spotify, those three. So I know there's a lot of others, like I said, SoundCloud, there's Stitcher, there's a whole bunch. But even with my new podcast, when I was, just getting together with friends for cocktails or something, she's an avid podcast consumer too, and she goes, "Is it on?" And she opened up SoundCloud, and I'm like, "Oh, we haven't clicked it to be on SoundCloud." She said, "That's fine. Where is it?" Because she knew if it was on Spotify, how to get it. I mean, she's a savvy podcast consumer, so she was willing to get my podcast where it was available, where it is available, and that was totally fine. So she was a live example for me of I don't know if there are many people that in these kind of narrower pockets of podcasters, I don't feel like they're that unwilling to receive it somewhere else. So that's good for you to know. How to get it published to those services, again, it's easier than it's ever been. There are multiple ways that you can do that. I currently am using something called Anchor for the new podcast, and actually for my old podcast, I switched it over to Anchor, which is related to Spotify. I love that service. It's super slick. You put it in one place, and then you basically are creating accounts on the different streaming services like Stitcher or SoundCloud or something like that, where it automatically gets fed to them. You guys, it's so easy. It really is easy. Once you get through these choices, once you get a couple under your belt, it'll be so seamless in terms of actually creating the content so you can focus on that and not on these technical aspects, which are probably part of the intimidation and why some people haven't gotten started with podcasts. Okay, so we've talked about the investment. If you want to pay a pro, which is totally fine, totally your choice, there's probably a lot of choices in how you do that. Even if you do pay a pro to set it up for you, somebody who's very technically advanced and that kind of thing, be very be aware of the ongoing costs if they're going to keep managing it for you. Be aware of the time delays if they're going to do editing for you and if they're going to do uploading for you. It is easy. I know you can do it, and I'm happy to show you how. I haven't set up an official set of classes for how to do this because I'm not sure what you guys need yet. I could also just help you in, one-on-one business advising sessions where we can just get you from, point A to point B, possibly in just one or two sessions. And you could have your first podcast up in a week, right? Seriously, you could have your podcast done in a week and up and out and feel so good about yourself and sharing it with people. Finally, having a space for you to share your wisdom, your heart, your passions with the world in your unique voice. So, yeah. That's exciting. Anyway, so I know you can do it. I'm happy to help you do it. And I'd love to help you do it and do it more affordably and more autonomously where you can operate it and do all of these steps yourself and do it in a very simplistic, bare bones, what really matters kind of way. And then you can get fancy on your own as you proceed if you want to, but you certainly don't have to. Okay. All right. So we did that nice and quick. So I am open for any sort of insight questions that you guys have.
I think I'm unmuted now. That's great, Jill. I don't really have any questions
Okay.
um, or comments or anything. You kind of covered everything, and then like in a few weeks, my future might be more clear,
Nice.
and then I would have ideas, and then I can call. Then I would schedule with you for like personal help because I
You
totally
can.
am a person who needs to be walked through this a little bit more closely.
Yeah. Yeah, we could totally do that. And we could actually, because we would do those on Zoom, Ron. So we would
Uh
be
huh.
able to do a like a screen sharing kind of thing. I could show you where to go to what accounts you need to set up and all of that. So in the on my website, there's the business advising section. So if you go to
Yep.
jillreneefeeler.com and then services, business advising, and you
Yep.
could just book the half hour or hour and we could get started there. And I mean, you know me, I'm quick, right? I just got through
Yes.
this super quick amount of time. So I just like, let's go. Let's get this done. So I don't want to waste time either. So yeah,
Right.
that
Yeah,
would,
you're
I think
super
that would be the
efficient.
way to do it. Thank you. I try to be with my
Yeah.
own life too.
Yeah, that's because yeah, like there's all these things are great, but there's going to come a time I'll be like, okay, let's like I don't even want to make decisions. What do I buy to get started?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
Uh-huh.
but that's not the time yet. I'm not there yet.
Okay. And I mean, you
Um,
know me, I'm not going to point you to a website because that's what I've had to do, right? I've had to do all of this on my own, right? Which camera's best,
right.
doing, right, reading reviews, looking at Amazon reviews, looking at professional reviews on cameras and mics and all this stuff. And then I have bought stuff, I have used it, and I'm like, I don't think this is any better.
Right.
And I don't have fancy like foam walls in here. Some of my kids with their professional YouTubers that they watch, they're in these studios, like a sound studio, and it's a
Hmm.
dedicated space. I mean, maybe I'm not, maybe my hearing isn't that great. I don't know, but I can't tell the difference enough to justify that kind of investment, that kind of dedication of space. I don't think it matters.
So now your partners that you talk to, are they local? Like, do you do that in person, or are you doing that via Zoom, or were you saying some other?
She's
Um,
Oh, the other person that I do the podcast with, is that what you mean?
yeah.
No,
Yeah.
she lives in New York City and Miami.
Oh wow. Okay. I'll listen to it this weekend to see what it sounds like.
Yeah,
Um,
good idea. If you would like my help, just hop on over to jillreneefeeler.com, look for the drop down menu for services, and pick business advising. And you'll see a 30-minute session or a 60-minute session, as long as the other services that I provide. Okay, wishing you well in all your matters of business, life, and being.